Mic check. Mic check.
So, Dele, we're actually sitting in Stoke Newington in London.
Yes.
I can't deny that one of the main reasons for coming over this weekend was to catch you and Tony Allen at the Electric Brixton.
Yes.
It was a really magical one-off gig.
Yes.
As much jazzy as it was Afrobeat. First of all, let's talk about the now. How was that gig for you? How did it come about? Tell me about your relationship with Tony.
Tony's my Afrobeat father, you know, and it's always a dream to share. I mean, I've shared music, I've shared the stage with him on numerous occasions in different formats, but this is the first time I'm actually sharing the stage with him with fellow Nigerian brothers speaking the language of Afrobeat and bringing the influences that each individual has sort of like over the years we've been in music, we've immersed ourselves into all kinds of different projects. Like I have the Afro-Cuban project, and then of course a couple of my popular tracks have been remixed and all that. And yeah, you know, there are all these influences, and I love my funk. I'm a funketeer for life, you know.
We know that.
So we bring the funk, and then I love the improvisational aspects of music, which is referred to as jazz. So as much jazz it was, there was a lot of spontaneous creativity on stage by everybody. Tony was all over the drums, man, speaking the lingo of Afrobeat groove, you know. And bass player Femi Lass, he's my writing mate right from high school. We've been playing, we've been loving people like Weather Report. He's a bass player. He loves his Jacko. He loves his Victor Bailey. You know, all those great bass players. And I'm a lovely Joe Zawino enthusiast. I listen to Rubal Calba Gonzalo. I listen to Herbie. Listen to, of course, Joe Sample and all those guys. But then also I'm listening to my local artists back from Nigeria and from Africa and from the world in general. So all those little things that will influence you, we now bring everything into one big pot. Because we've been talking about it for a long time and we've never been able to do it. But as they say, when it's supposed to happen, it will happen. Nothing will stop it from happening. And that's what happened.
In this reply to my first question, you've already brought in so many things that I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
So first of all, I want to talk about your genre breaking versatility. I find you hugely versatile in the sense you say you're a funketeer, we hear the funk.
Yeah.
A few months ago, I saw you play at the Jazz Cafe with your extended outfit. There was maybe 15 of you on stage.
Yeah.
And that was deeply dynamic and vibrant. And it was Afrobeat of the highest caliber.
Oh, thank you.
With all the horn sections, the vocalists, every type of percussion. You were doing an all singing, all dancing, all playing show. It was really colourful in every sense.
Yes.
And yet, the other night, with Tony Allen, it was a quartet. And as you said, there was so much improvisation. I actually felt it was more a jazz concert than anything else. And Tony, with all his 79 years of experience, looked more like Art Blakey to me than ever before, with a very still, smiling body. And his arms were like those of an octopus, just going everywhere.
I refer to him as the Afrobeat octopus on drums.
But bringing that back to you, I feel that you could have so many different hats that you wear. You're also an educator. You play so many different styles. How would you write your own Wikipedia introduction? Who and what is Dele Sosimi? And just tell us about all these different styles of music that speak to you.
Dele is just a groover, a lover of music, a lover of creativity, a lover of momentum and a forward direction. Take a couple of steps backward if you need to, but then keep on looking ahead to being open to doing what you love from your heart. It's not to please. It's not to commercialize. It's not motivated by money. It's not motivated by how do you say?
Fame, celebrity.
Yeah, I'm not looking for fame. I just want to party. I want to party with everybody. I want to bring the party to you. And when you see that the party has come to you, please party. And then when you're partying, don't be selfish, don't be stingy with your funking and your grooving. Please groove, because that your funking and grooving will feed off your energy and will regurgitate and take you higher.
You mentioned Tony Allen as being your Afrobeat godfather or mentor.
Yes.
Can you just take us back? First of all, can you clear up something I've never understood? Were you born in Nigeria? Were you born in Hackney? Have you always lived between the two? And then please weave in how these two giants came into your life. Take us back, Dele.
Okay, I was born in the era when it was just post-independence in Nigeria, and the attitude of most Nigerians, I mean, the spirit in the country was, now let's build a nation. And to build a nation requires education, requires knowledge, requires expertise. So lots of people were looking for education and expertise and acquiring skills in governance, in every aspect of society, by flying to London or flying to the UK, flying to Germany, flying to France, flying all over the world. Some even went to America, some went to Canada, to higher institutions that were, recognized for certain standards of learning. And my dad came around for banking. So when he came to study. He left my mom, who was pregnant with me, and my mom whined and pined and suddenly he saved up enough money to buy her a flight ticket. So she came into London on the 10th of February 1963, and then I was born on the 22nd of February. So I just scraped it.
Into the UK.
Yeah, I was born in Hackney, and then, of course, they stayed there for 4 years, and then once my dad qualified, he just came straight back to Nigeria.
And the whole family went there too?
No, not the whole family, just me and my dad, because my mom was pregnant for the last child, and it was not advisable it was one of our challenging ones. She was advised not to travel until after the baby. But the minute she had the baby, she came back. Mm-hmm. By then, my dad had started working as a banker. He had saved up enough money to get a big house.
And were you in the capital? Were you in Lagos?
We were in Lagos. We grew up in Lagos. But unfortunately, after rising through the banking ranks very quickly, he became one of the top forensic bankers, analysts. Yeah, so he was put in the fraud department of the bank, and he was so efficient. Anyway, sadly, one of the first major scandals, he was in charge of finding out who the culprits were. And when he stumbled on the information and he collated his reports, the people who were involved tried to silence him by offering him a bribe. Mm. We were little, I was 12 and a half, going on 13, not knowing that it would cost him his life. So unfortunately, he got assassinated by hired assassins, by the people who perpetuated the group. Till today, I don't even know who they were. All I know is that they made sure that report he
never delivered it.
It was never delivered. And the corruption is so bad that sometimes they say if you can't beat them, join them. And if you are brought up to a standard of integrity that you can't join them, you refuse to join them, it means you've got to cry wolf when the wolf is there. Mm-hmm. And my dad chose to, no, I'm happy with my paycheck. My paycheck is doing me good, but you know what? This is going to see the light of day, and that cost him dearly. Anyway,
you said it turned your life around.
Yeah.
What were the consequences of this story?
Okay, my mom had 5 of us at the time. I was the second child, the first son. I had 2 brothers, and I had a baby sister, and I had an elder sister. So you can imagine someone at 36 being widowed with 5 children to survive alone in
Nigeria.
And then not knowing whether they were going to come back to wipe out the family, living in fear. She was always sleeping with one eye open every night, not knowing, because the incident happened in his own house. He had built his own house. We were living in his own house. No, none of us could stay in our house anymore. Even up till today, we can't stay in the house. I mean, all my siblings don't live in Nigeria. Because of that, everybody's moved out. My 2 brothers live here in London, because we were all born in London, so we had the choice of British citizenship. And then we managed to get the baby sister. She's a teacher here in London. And then my big sister lives in America. She's got her own 3 children. She's now a grandma. Anyway.
Did you all move back to the UK following
No.
that episode?
No. We still grew up. Mm-hmm. I met Fela. Because my high school, Fela's nephew was in my high school. So Fela's nephew was already a genius on playing Fela motifs, riffs, and anything new that Fela came up with on a weekly or fortnightly basis. You just hear someone playing the piano, playing some lines that that's a Fela line? Who's that? Oh, it's that guy again, that Fela's nephew. Man, damn, I wish I could play. So I used to watch him and then watch his movements. Then when he's gone, then I would try and teach myself from memory what he played. Then I started listening to more to the tracks, because we had the 45s of most of Fela's tracks. I would listen, walk it out. Then instead of going to class when I got to school, this was after my dad had died, instead of going to class, I'll be on the piano, walking out bass line, guitar lines, tenor guitar lines, horn lines. I said, okay, take it apart, put it back together. Then I got introduced to Femi.
But just a little question here. Are you telling us you're totally self-taught?
Totally
you didn't have
self-taught.
any lessons at all?
Nah. But Fela's nephew had a teacher. Twice a week, he would go for piano lessons. And I made friends with him. So I was allowed to sit in the room as long as I was not a peep from me. So I used to sit down when they'll tell him to run the scales, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and then the fingering patterns for some of them, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, all those. So I sat attentively, watching every day. Then the next day, go to school, trying whatever I could remember. I'll say, okay, yeah. Let me just say, okay, fingering. Yeah, it works. Okay, yeah, it's fluid if you do it like that. And then so you must practice all this in all the 12 keys. I'll get home. But that's how I learned. But then I play by ear. I have a good ear. When I hear a riff, once it's locked in my head, I can walk it out in the 12 keys. So I will go home, play it in C, play it in F. Then from F, I'll go to B flat, play it. Because I knew about the cycle of fifths, cycle of fourths, and all that. Da-dee, 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 da-dee. By the time you do it like 4 times, you play the 12 keys, So I then started buying material to read on jazz, started listening to solos, trying to transcribe the way I know how. Tonic solfa, I taught myself. I learned what all the 12 keys are in the language of tonic solfa. And by the time I met Fela, I was already playing in the school band. So when I met Femi, it was magical. It was like 2 brothers from another mother. It was destiny. It was like,
so we have to precise that you have played with both father and son.
Oh, yes.
Fela and Femi.
Yeah.
Could you distinguish the years you were in Africa 80 and describe a little bit?
Egypt 80.
Egypt 80, sorry. Egypt 80. So can you describe the years you spent in Egypt 80 and then how that compared to playing with Femi afterwards?
we were students in Egypt 80. So when we started with Egypt,
You say we. Are you?
Femi and I.
Okay, so you were both in Fela's band together.
Yes, yes. Because what happened, when I met Femi was out of school. Then Femi introduced me to Fela. Ah, Fela, this is the guy I was telling you about. You
Well,
remember?
my dad.
Yeah. No, he calls him Fela.
Really?
No,
Okay.
Fela refuses for his children to call him daddy.
Okay.
No, they call him Fela. And then I subsequently had to now call him Fela. I said, you can't call him Uncle Fela. And he said, who's your uncle? Please call me Fela. I said, okay, yes, Fela. So he said, Fela, this is that my friend I was telling you about. You remember the one that his father was assassinated? Oh, it was, come sit down.
So he knew you via what had happened in the news.
Yeah, because it was big. It was big news. Bank auditor stabbed dead. Bank auditor and father stabbed dead. Because unfortunately, my grandfather was in the house. So it wasn't just him. So both of them in one go, So it was a big tragedy.
This is a really difficult story.
Yeah, it is. But I can talk about it now. Before, by the time I talk about it, then you see the memories come back. Anyway, the first question Fela asked me was, so did any of you get any counseling?
What a very human and empathetic question.
I was 13 and I'm like, what's psychological counseling? I never come across that word. I went to go and look for the word psychological counseling. I went to the encyclopedia, I went to dictionary, and I was like, bless, no. And that didn't exist. None of us had any counseling even up till now. I still haven't had. But you know what? In Africa, most of the tragedies that have happened over the decades of from slave trade period till now, most of us have just developed what you call coping mechanisms. All my dad's so-called friends were scared SHIT less. Whenever they would come and visit my mom, or when my mom would take us visiting, maybe she requires help, she would take us, the children, to one of his best friends and say, look, I'm struggling, or, tell her problems and all that. And whatever they would say, please don't give any interviews. If they come, don't talk to press. Don't let them come after you and the kids. Put the fear of God in us. And we were always scared. Whenever we were looking, were looking to see if we were being trailed. When mom was driving to work, we were always trying to look, when you watch the movies, looking to see if any car is following us, I mean, for me. But then, after a while, it was obvious that they were not interested. They buried the reports. There was no report. There was no way the report was going to come out. So nobody was after anybody. But Fela was concerned. Meanwhile, his friends were too scared of whoever they were that perpetrated the scandal. But Fela was adamant and said, you know what? Who's helping your mom? Who's paying your school fees? He wanted to know how my mom was surviving with 5 of us. And when he heard, he said, you know what, I'm going to sue the bank and I'm going to sue the government because this is a big tragedy. Something must have happened. There must be something in place to support your mom. You should have, your mom shouldn't be struggling to pay your school fees because this guy died for a good cause. He died in active duty. The bank should, and he said so many things. I was looking at him like, this is the first man that has said it like it's supposed to be. And I was like, what a guy. And like I said, man, this is the dude, man. This is my new adopted father. So I adopted him as a father there and then.
I think he adopted you very much as a son. And we all vaguely know that Fela was an activist.
Yeah.
But it's good to have this kind of micro information to understand how he manifested his activism. It sounds that very much out of a tragedy, he also adopted you.
Yeah.
And gave you the biggest break in music that anyone could ever have hoped for.
Yeah, he just put me in it. I remember Femi and I, while he was in jail for that trumped up currency charge, we had been leading the band. I was in charge of regurgitating Fela's repertoire. Because when Fela has released a record, you will never hear him play that record live again. So people will come to Shrine expecting to hear Zombie, expecting to hear What I No Get Enemy. You say, you're living in the past times. You need to listen to what's current. And Fela had his own performance venue, performing 4 times a week. So he couldn't afford to be going back. He was like, look, I'm evolving. I'm developing new stuff. I don't go back. If you need to hear that,
Buy the
go
record.
and buy the record, you know. And so when he was incarcerated, we still had to keep the club open 4 times a week. And I just said, arranging skills to the rescue. So it was like a silent thing between Femi and I. And Femi started to write his own originals. And I was re-orchestrating Fela's classics that were never played. So people will come to Shrine knowing that they were going to hear Lady, they were going to hear Shakara, they were going to hear Zombie, they were going to hear even some of those high life versions from qu'il Lobito's era. So, and I was in charge of making sure. And then there was the band leader then, who was Lekon Animashaun, who was the baritone sax player, who also had his own compositions, which we would do as overtures before the main performance of each themed night starts.
How old were you in this period of your life?
20, 21, 22.
I mean, tell me it was amazing by Nigerian standards that you were so young doing such amazing things in music?
I don't know. All I know is that I just took responsibility. No, but he didn't tell me this is what you should do. I just felt it was my responsibility to start reorchestrating because we needed material. And I just stood up. We would get to rehearsal, and because Femi was Fela's son, and I was his right-hand man, it was like an unspoken law. Okay, Dele's written some arrangements for John Kuku or for Wayo, you know. So yeah, get yourself ready. And we increased discipline in the band. If we had a rehearsal starting at 4 p.m., people were there by 3:30, ready, seated, ready, waiting, because you get fined, you know.
You were kind of James Brown style.
Yeah, that was Femi. Femi was, you know. And it was a very great learning curve for both of us. And at some point in time, I felt going through some form of education in an institution would help, you know. And when I mentioned it to Femi was of the same idea. I said, yeah, let's go to Trinity. Let's see if we can get sponsorship to go to Trinity College, where Fela studied. And then
Here in
London, yeah. So we went up to Fela and saw him in jail. And I said, Fela, we're thinking of going to go and study in Trinity College, you know, blah, 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 blah. Fela he looked at both of us. He said, I'm in jail. You have that big band to yourself. You're doing well. I'm hearing reports of what you're doing. If you go to that institution, what are they going to teach you that you're not learning firsthand here? Well, I cannot tell you not to go, but you know what? I see you learning more in the environment of where you are. You've got an orchestra that you've got to play 4 times a week. You've got to play, and they were not, you know, here in Europe, these 90, 60 minute, 45 minute sessions, we start at 11 p.m. and don't stop till 5 a.m. in the morning. And I said, you're doing that 4 times a week, 50 weeks a year. I don't know what they're going to teach you there, but I'm not saying don't go. Think about it carefully before you make the decision. Both of us went away. And we knew that.
He was right.
He was right.
Of course he was right.
Man, I said, I don't know how long I'm going to be in here for, but you have the band at your disposal. And Femi wrote a lot of music around that period until he came out. And then when we left Fela's band together, we didn't plan it, but we had the same mindset that, look, man, this is it. If fella has rubbished all the disciplinary procedures we put in place, then there's no point. If we should, he has taught us to stand up for what we believe in. So let's stand up for what we believe in. So I stood up, I said, okay, I'm resigning. Thinking he would say, oh, Dele, what's the problem? Not a peep. I was gutted because I resigned in strike. You know, he's an activist, you know.
You thought he was going to hold you back.
He was going to call back and say, well, what's the problem? I said, we put discipline in place. 1, no smoking on stage. 2, if we call rehearsal 4 o'clock, you need to be there 3:30, you know. You need to be ready to go on stage. Not you start tuning your instrument. You know, we put all these procedures. And fella came out of jail. He was released. And the first rehearsal we had, from 5 o'clock, fella didn't turn up till 11 o'clock. I was livid. I was like, what the heck? No way. Then when he came, he said he was with one lady having, you know what you do when you have a lady. He said, and it was really, really, you know, I was like, I don't want to know, man. This is your first rehearsal with your band. The first day, all the work we've been doing, you just rubbished it. I was gutted. I was livid. I was inconsolable. But I did not say anything to anybody. I didn't even tell Femi anything. I went, because I was living with Femi then. When I got home, I just said to Femi, I said, well, tomorrow's rehearsal, that fella has said, I'm not going until he calls a meeting that, oh, why are you going? I said, oh, you just read my mind, because I'm of the same opinion, I'm not going. So both of us didn't turn up the next day. Then he sent someone to say, why didn't you turn up for rehearsal yesterday? I then sent back a letter of resignation. God, I don't know if that was the stupidest thing I could have done, but when I didn't expect him. I felt I was special enough that he'd be like, Dele, what's the problem? Come on, sit down. Nothing. I was like, oh my God, what do we do now?
But it sounds like he set you free, set you and Femi free to go off and do your own thing. Surely that was also what he had in mind.
I would like to believe that. I would like to. But it was destined to happen. We had to adventure on our own. And it was what an adventure I had with him. I was with him for 9 years. You know, we went around the world. Give
us a time frame. What was the period that when you left Fela to then start 86. Up a new band with Femi?
86. When Fela came out of jail. From 86 to 95, I was with Femi.
And how was that different? Obviously, a younger setup, more disciplined.
Younger setup, more disciplined, and we were the teachers. Because the band, most of the people we had in the band were young, up-and-coming musicians who were not masters. So they were looking up to us mostly. They were not masters in Afrobeat. They knew a bit of high life. They knew of Fela's style of Afrobeat. But we were the ones who were more or less like dictating that, look, when these lines, you have to play them with this attitude, you know, just showing them the ropes and how phrasings, you know, was quite important, you know, and then being able to master your instrument, become one with your instrument, giving them tips on what to rehearse. Even drummers, I know what to tell a drummer who wants to play Afrobeat. I know that this is your weak point. That part of you need to do this exercise more. Do it. Even if it's just 30 minutes a day, spend time doing it. By the time you do it for 4 weeks, you see an improvement. You know, all those kind of little things.
Was there a change or an evolution in the sound from Fela's style of Afrobeat to what you did with Femi?
Oh yeah, there was. Because Femi had this thing that I don't want to sound. I want my sound to have a difference.
I don't want to be a replica of my dad.
Yeah, I don't want to be a replica. I want to have my own voice. I want my own voice to come out. And I was content to just sit back, relax. We were playing Fela covers too. So I was content to write Fela covers for the band. You write the originals. So when we have live concerts, he's Fela's son. He cannot run away from people saying, "Lady," because of that reputation of when Fela was in jail for how many years, we held fort and we were playing all those classic oldies that people loved, and the shrine on a Sunday used to be packed with our mates, our generation of Afrobeat lovers, loads on there, and that had already endeared him to the Afrobeat world in Lagos.
But he wanted a different sound. So what did he do, musically speaking, to achieve that?
Musically, he just went radical. He had wicked horn lines. He went into time signature. Like he wrote a couple of songs in 4/5/4, and then a couple of songs that would start off in 1 meter and then change into the other meter and then come back, 5/4 into 4/4 and then into 6/8 and then back. He did.
So this is a typical Femi theme,
yeah,
to change the beat and the tempo.
Yeah, he was really into different time signatures and exploring the possibilities of writing in those kind of with those kind of themes in mind. He was set up to want to do something that hasn't been done by his father. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. He actually came up with that drum pattern, I remember. So when you go and then to get the audience involved, you will be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. Everybody, come on! You say 4, 5. This is different. This is not the normal 1, 2, 3, 4. No, this is 5, 4. So when I say 1, 2, 3, you say 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. And then there was something that had a bit of sort of the reggae skank kind of,
He brought in new influences.
He brought in a lot of influences. There was a bit of funk, a funk jazz. I remember Search Yourself had the kind of Les McCann. I brought my Les McCann influence into that. If you check out the track called Search Yourself from his first album, I think that had a little bit of Les McCann, and then it was in his album No Cause for Alarm that had the skanking on the keys, not but something like that. And then
I'm going to interrupt you here. You've spoken about Fela and you've spoken about Femi. You've given us some amazing description of what it was like back in the shrine when you and Femi were in charge. Take us back to the name we mentioned at the very beginning, to Tony Allen. In the middle of all this Fela-Femi collaboration, where and when did Tony come in and impact your life?
Tony was part of Africa 70. So the split had happened when I came in, because I came in around Egypt 80. But he was still friends with Fela. He would come to the shrine. He would be, he came to the shrine one night and he heard me and he heard my solos. And he said to me one day, he said, man, you're going to play on my album one day. Man, I was like, me, Tony Allen? Me, on your... I think I was 17 or 18 plus when that happened. I was over the moon. I couldn't sleep for days. I was like, oh God, please, let it be soon. When? But he had just come, I think he came from Europe for a while, and and when he said that to me, I was like, and he did tell me, he said, keep it up, man. You got a bright future. So then, when Femi formed his band and we started touring in Europe, Tony was Paris-based. So we used to see him in Paris. And then, before then, when Fela was in jail, Tony would be in Lagos. I love calling him doctor, because as far as I'm concerned, traditionally, I'm not supposed to be calling him Tony. He's like my father, man, So I used to call him doctor, because we call him doctor of Afrobeat drums. So doctor will come to the shrine unannounced. The minute we see him, we'll be like, drum solo. There has to be a drum solo. We look for a track that will bring him on, and then so we had that rapport. He knew how close I was to Femi, and he would always acknowledge me, tell me, give me some tips, talk to me and say, yeah, I like what you're doing. But think of rhythm. Try to make sure you have your own voice. Those were the things he would say to me. I know you like jazz, you like all those cascading runs, you want to sound, don't forget, you got to speak your own language. So those are the kind of tips he used to give me then. I identified with it because it was in line with what Fela used to say to me. Fela used to say to me, in Afrobeat music, the idea of taking a solo is not because you want to really show off technical brilliance. That you have something to say, and whatever you have to say along the lines of Afrobeat should be danceable. So, because we're playing live, look for one of the best dancers in the audience. Fixate, get energy off, and you will notice that whatever you play will become something that person is dancing to. Or just watch the person's steps, movements, and try and lock into the space and vibe and energy, and just interpret, So
What amazing advice. What logical, simple, but effective advice. Something that you could never really write in a music manual.
I tell you, so you people, I'm really good, man. Check me out. I got chops, I got lines, I can do some cascading lines at the speed of light. Oh, hell yeah. But can I dance to it, please? I want to dance. I don't want to be bedazzled by your musical dexterity. I want to groove to your musical dexterity. Speak to my body, my persona, my DNA. Let my DNA become remote controlled by what you're playing. That was the idea. So with those kind of tips at a very early age, you can't go wrong. But the only thing is, Fela also said, it's a long, hard, lonely path. Because if you're looking at templates, music is a business now. It's about who has the most strategic business template for what they're doing. And sometimes you can't allow the business to becloud your musicality, your genuinity, your genuineness, and your love for what you do, and your ability to be true and genuine in what you're doing. So Fela refused all pressures to make 3-minute tracks. He said, can you tell Chopin, Bach, Liszt, can you tell those guys to write a 3-minute track? Nah. They have movement, second movement, third movement. And you can listen to this for like 20 minutes. So my music is African classical music too. So if you want 3-minute songs, go and tell somebody else to do that. But you ain't come here. I'm going to take you on a journey. It's a journey. So I learned, and I found it really hard to not do like that, make 3-minute songs. Oh, God. I will make the whole. I've even tried. I do 8-minute songs. Then my record label will now decide, okay, we need to make a 3-minute radio edit. I said, that's your business. I don't care what you do.
Don't make me do it. Get the
Don't make me do it.
Yeah.
Don't make me do it. You do it. I made my musical statement, but make sure there are 2 versions. You keep the original version and then call it radio edit.
I think a 3-minute Afrobeat track is just a misnomer. The 2 words, the 2 concepts just do not come together.
It's like foreplay without after foreplay.
That's a very good metaphor. So from your collaboration with Femi, just to bring it back now to the UK and to a more present state, what then happened when you left Femi's band? What brought you here to London? And how has the Dele that we know and love of today developed?
Dele that you know today came to London thinking he was coming for a couple of weeks to be with his family, until it then turned out that there was a misinterpretation of Dele leaving suddenly to come to London, and Femi took it bad, and I was replaced in the band. You know, it was like, yeah, that's it. Let's get someone else. And when I realized it was time to go back, and I tried to go back, there was no space for me in the band anymore. And I was like, uh-oh.
Things move quickly.
Yeah. So I said to myself, man, damn, I didn't grow up in Europe. How do I start a career here in Europe at my age, 30-something? If you're 30-something, you're considered old. Where do I even start from? So I started reaching out to the contacts we had in France. I said, look, I want to start my own project here in London, blah, blah, blah.
What year are we looking at here? Where are we?
96. Because I left December 95. So by 96, or by the end of January 96, I knew I was on my own. So it took a long while. Initially, I wanted to go back to uni. I said, okay. In fact, I was having regrets. I remembered what my mom said to me. Even if you want to do music, you finished your high school. Go to uni, get a first degree in something, anything. So at least if you have to fall back on anything in the future, if the music don't work for you, at least you have that. And I said, if you don't believe in yourself, that's when you do that. I believe in myself now, so I'm not doing that. So I then said to myself, okay, maybe this is the time now to go and do that. So I'd apply to universities, asking for prospectus and things, considering whether I want to do sound engineering or whether I want to do just going to theater arts, just checking out what is there that I can study anyway. Then a neighbor had seen live on Glastonbury, Fela Kuti live at Glastonbury, and he said to my wife, your husband, he play with a Fela Kuti. I said, yes. I said, this man is a great man. Where he plays now? It was Portuguese. I said, no, he's not playing anywhere. Where I'm make band. Can he play with me? I said, well, he doesn't have a piano. I said, I have piano, I give him piano. My wife came up and said to me, there's this guy that lives on the last floor. He wants you to come and see him. He wants to put up a band, blah, 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 blah. And he said he's got a piano. So I went, met him. He was in awe. He was like, I saw you on the TV. You play with the Fela Kuti in Glastonbury. But you're not young anymore. But yeah, I recognize it. Anyway, so that's how it started.
So did you actually set up a band with your Portuguese neighbour?
I did. No, he set up his band and he wanted me to play keys. So I started playing sort of like Brazilian style, just playing. He sent me the music and I don't read. So I taught myself how to read.
So age 30-something, after a 20-plus career in music, you taught yourself to read music?
I started when I was 13. I joined Fela's band. I was sitting in from the age of 15 plus. Then I started 16 full time when I finished high school. And then 16 to 32. Oh, damn. Yeah, I taught myself. Anyway, I realized one thing. We play by ear back home. We don't put charts in front of us. That don't work here in Europe. I have to be able to write my stuff. Working with that guy taught me people don't have time to spend more than 4 hours rehearsing with you for your stuff. And sometimes there are some of them who are fantastic readers, just write as is to be played. They'll come to the gig, they'll put it on their pad and thingy.
And the music stand.
Yeah, you're allowed to have music stands, at gigs.
Something that you would never have in Nigeria. But come to Europe and you need the music stand.
Some people used to ask, how do you guys remember all these songs and you don't have paper in front of you? That's a secret. That's the secret of being an Afrobeat musician, you're playing from here. Because you put that paper, even up till now when I go to master classes, unless it's absolutely necessary, I don't give them charts. I go through the phrases. So I take them in chunks, bite-sized chunks. Like I could take 2 bars, and I'll make sure we get those 2 bars. Then move on to the next 2 bars. Then once we got that 2 bars, then we now got 4 bars. Okay, play the 4, depending on the complexity. So I'll now take 4 bars of music. I say, okay, now let's hear everybody play. Like if I have a horn section playing 4 bars of a riff, I say, okay, now you're all accomplished musicians. How would you want to harmonize or interpolate, bring your own interpretation into it? So who are you arrangers? Now rearrange that to suit what you want to hear. You've heard the original. This is how it goes. For example, two sets of riffs. Now, how do you guys want to do it? Put the harmonies, whatever. How they say, that's up to you. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but this is the riff, and this is the phrasing of it. Or whatever. Okay, how do you want to phrase that? I mean, how do you want to harmonize it? Or do you want to do counterpoint arrangements to that? But yeah. When we finish the masterclass, then I'll say, well, for those of you, because I know you're not used to memorizing. Now, here's the charts as I am giving afterwards. And they'll be like, why did you give us the chart? I said, no. There are 2 different things. If I give you the charts, you'll be fixated on the charts throughout the masterclass. But if I don't give you the charts and I'm doing call, I'm playing the line for you. This is the phrasing of the line. These are the notes, and this I play it for you. And this is how it works with the groove of the bass, the drums, the guitars, the groove, the underneath rhythm section. This is how it fits in. Like if you're looking at Tetris blocks, this you start off the one or on the one or after the one, And you should have given us the sheets. No, are 2 different things. Now, you cannot tell me that after today there are not some music, there are some lines stuck in your head you can't forget because you were not playing from the sheet.
Your Portuguese band, how did then that lead to all the different musical outfits you've managed to create living here in the UK?
That Portuguese band did not last more than 3-4 months. We didn't even do 1 gig, but we were rehearsing. I had a piano I could practice with, but you know what? Someone then took me to go and watch Bucky Leo at Smolensky's on the Strand. And I was like, damn! Bucky Leo's put a good band together, man. Damn! Now, nothing stops me from putting a band together. It's just a question of I need a keyboard, a proper, stage keyboard anyway. So I started doing a residency somewhere. I bought a workstation where I could program all the instruments. I could drop them in one by one, So I could have the rhythm section underneath. I could play the horn riffs over it, and I could sing over it, or I could have a horn player play the riffs. So I used to do duo in Nigerian restaurants. And then before you knew it, the restaurant every Friday would be jam-packed. It got so popular that another place in Elephant and Castle booked me to be doing every Friday. If you're not in by 8:30, you can't get in because it was jam-packed. It was in the basement. So I used to run all these jams, and musicians used to come because word got around town. There's this ex-Fela musician that's running an all-night Afrobeat jam, And then I just noticed that someone will come, and I notice he has a horn. And I'll be like, while I'm playing, maybe my partner is taking a solo, I'll be like, what's your name? Is that a horn? You want to sit in? Come on. If you want to sit in, come on. So that's how I got Justin, my trombone player. He came into one jam. He said he heard there was a jam. He joined me. Then another player that played with me for a long time, Linus Bewley, tenor sax. He came in, he was like, oh, I'm hooked. And each time before they go, I'll make sure I give them a bit of, I say, okay, I know it's not much, but add to your train fare. By the way, I need your details because when I'm putting up the big live band, I probably will be calling you because I'd started getting bookings for private events from the Nigerian community. I was playing 40th birthdays, weddings, christenings, And then suddenly, Joyful Noise now decided to give me a gig at the Purcell Room. Dele Sosimi Afrobeat Orchestra at the Purcell Room. Ooh. So that's how it all started.
What year was this?
I think it was 97.
So the breakthrough year started in 97. And so then the Dele explosion took off.
It was when I had that Purcell Room experience, then I had a Queen Elizabeth Hall experience, then I had the quartet experience, because I put a quartet together and we opened for Eric Bibb and at the Queen Elizabeth Hall. And then the training and the talks that Fela gave me when I was with him kept resonating in my head. You need a residency. You need a place where you can evolve your music, develop your music, So I said, okay, first things first, I've got to release an album. So with the help of my wife, who financed it, we came up with Turbulent Times, my first album. So once that came out...
That was 2004?
Oh, yeah, thereabouts.
Well, Wikipedia says it's 2004.
Okay, good. Then it must be right. So I came up with Turbulent Times, and then that started getting me more attention. I said, oh, who's this guy? He's jazzy. Because I worked with people like Byron Wallen, who's quite popular as one of the faces of British jazz for trumpet, and Tony Kofi, who's also a Monk Institute alumni. But he's done a lot of Thelonious Monk projects for the London EFG Jazz Festival, and he's quite accomplished. He works a lot with Byron also. So I had both of them, Byron on trumpet and Tony Kofi on baritone sax on that album, and it went down very well. So I got a gig at Joe Zawinul's Birdland.
How amazing.
Joe Zawinul that I met at Glastonbury when Fela played Glastonbury. And I went up into their tour bus and I was like, yo, my name is Dele Sosimi and I play the rhythm piano in Fela Kuti's band. You all don't know me yet, but you're going to know me someday. So I tell you what, before I got too popular, I brought a couple of albums I'm going to autograph for y'all. And he was coughing for head of state because I played keys on. I said, I'm going to autograph for y'all. So y'all autograph something for me. So I gave each one of them. But surprisingly, Joe still remembered me. So when I was Eric, his son, that gave him the album, or I don't know. Anyway, I got a residency to come and do 2 nights at Birdland. And now Birdland in Vienna was situated in the basement of one of the hotels. I'm not sure if it was the Hilton or it was Stadtgarten or something like that. But in the basement, so we had 2 nights. Then we had a second 2 nights. Then he did the charity concert for Hurricane Katrina orphans, raised over about $250,000, which was donated to the orphans who had lost their parents, and all that. But he invited me, just me. Said, yeah, come and sit with this all-star lineup. We had Kyle Eastwood on bass, Tune Ruse on tenor sax, the Rounder Girls, Silvio Berger on drum. Quite a star-studded lineup. Ooh, I felt so good. I said, like, my hero, Joe Zawinul. There were 2 pianos. I was on piano, he was on the synth. Oh. Then he came and played on one of my tracks. Ooh. What endorsement. He made up money in my bank account, but you know what? The fact that I was hanging out, I still have that picture on my Facebook page. Me and him, ooh.
Give us a list of all your projects at the moment.
Well, there's Lucky Terra meets Dele Sosimi. That's the Afro-Cuban thing. There's the Dele Sosimi Afrobeat Orchestra, which is usually a minimum of 8 of us on stage. So with that lineup, for the 8 musicians, I like to have a guitar, a drum, a percussion, and a bass player. So that's 4 people. Then I like to have 3 horn players, and then I'll be the 8th person. Then when we can make it up to 10, I'll add an extra guitar player, because in the Afrobeat style, you've got to have 2 guitars, a strummer and a picker.
A strummer and a picker.
So, somebody can be playing, that's a picker. Then the guitar, we did those 2
and that's
rhythms.
A strummer.
Guitar, yeah, strumming, chords, those 2, when I can listen to that group for hours, just the 2 interpolating. Then you have that coco percussion, the clave going just tick 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 tick, and then shh shh shh. Just that groove alone. When I'm hearing that, I'm like, oh, give me more, come on, give me more. So once you have that rhythm section, then you inject the bass line. Then you have the drummer. Then
you're in musical heaven.
Yes, then you now say, okay, how do I want the horns to take everybody on a musical journey? Then you write horns that will take you up, drop, and then suddenly drop you down, and then bring you up again, and then take you places, according to your imagination. So I've got that full 8 piece, which is usually for budgetary reasons. Most festivals will offer, or most clubs will offer the same amount they will give a quartet. Whether you're a quartet or a big band, they will offer you the same amount. In the early stages of my band, I would take whatever they offer. And if I need to supplement to make sure everybody gets a good pay, I will supplement. Because then I had a side job. I was working on the side, so I could always supplement.
Just to recap, quartet.
Quartet. Quartet is bass, drums, percussion, and myself.
Quartet, then you got the orchestra.
And I got the orchestra. Then I've got the full orchestra, which is usually 2 percussion players, drummer, 2 guitars, bass, 5-piece horn section. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's already 11. 2 singers, 12, 13. Then 2 lovely dancers, 14, 15.
That's the outfit I saw at the Jazz Cafe a few months ago, and I have to say, it raises the roof. Yeah.
Because you got to have a trumpet, you got to have a trombone, and you got to have a flugelhorn. That's the brass. Then the horns should be alto, tenor, baritone, and bass saxophone. Oh, yeah. A dream horn section to write for. And then sometimes you write the horn lines where at some point in time they now separate into 3. And then they come back together. So there are 3 different riffs interpolating, like the dance of 2 snakes or 3 snakes, and then suddenly they come, and you be like, oh, you wrote that. I did. Or we did in some cases. So yeah, and there's that. And now I've just started a new project, the Dele Sosimi X Medler, which is an electronic project with Medler doing, he's on the synth, he's on the guitar, and he's on the MPC, where you can store loops and riffs and things. And then I just play the keys, I play the electric piano, and I play an array of synths, either which way most practical. That's the one I'm taking to Lausanne, yeah.
For the Worldwide Festival.
Yeah, just 2 of us.
So it's a kind of more techie,
More
could we
techie.
call it, kind of geeky project, just the 2 of you.
Afro techie, geeky, and whatever you call it. But you know what? I believe I have a sound. They'd be like, that sounds like a Dele Sosimi line. That's a Dele Sosimi line. Oh, it's easy. I never knew you'd do this.
You could go techie.
I can't go techie.
You just said that sounds like a Dele Sosimi line. Describe it. What is that line?
I don't even know. I just express myself. Hey, I know I've heard that kind of groove before. It sounds a bit Wally Badirouish. That's a title. That's a track that I called "Where Is Wally," and it's in honor of Wally Badiru. Medla and I wrote that just specially, and we did a gig recently. Two of us supporting Wally Badiru. Woohoo! I was in seventh heaven. I was like, and then he played his popular high life tune. You know that tune? Didi dun 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 didi gong 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 didi gong gong didi dun well, hitting he played all his classics, you know. That's another genius, Wally Badiru. Woohoo! Yeah, so I have that kind of project too, where it's just two of us.
And you're also an educator. You also take your learnings and you do workshops all around the world.
That is where I derive the most joy from. They say there's a lot of joy in sharing what you have, as opposed to keeping it to yourself. You don't want anybody to see. You know, there's some attitudes in the musical industry or in the musical world where people don't want to show. They think it's better to be secretive about what you have. I disagree. Whatever you have, share it with the young ones. That way it never dies. And when you share it, your journey does not end there. Whatever you share today, when they see you in 2-3 years, there's more to share. Because you've evolved from where you are. You don't. The idea is whatever you're doing, it's a continuous journey, and you evolve.
Would you say Afrobeat is more popular in Europe at the moment than it is back in Nigeria?
Of course, definitely. Afrobeat, Fela's Afrobeat is more so popular now than it's ever been before.
But specifically in Europe, it's been exported.
Yeah, specifically in Europe. Yeah. And then you hear how many people in France, how many French bands, especially in France. Have you seen the number of bands playing Afrobeat influenced or Afrobeat similar? They're really, and they're good. They are good. They've latched on to the nucleus of what makes it work. So, yeah.
Okay, so last word. Imagine a very lay person is listening, and for them, Afrobeat is a new term. Just give it to them in a sentence.
Music that when it touches you, you be like. Then you hear horns, and you hear, and he's like, oh, where they going? Where they going? Where they going? Where they going? Then you go, you be like, oh, OMG, who are these guys? So, including the high life, check the evolution of Fela from Kula Lobitos to Africa 70 to Egypt 80. Check the chronology of his evolution of style. You will learn a lot from it. And so, on that note, I think we're about to end.
It's been so insightful. Thank you for sharing things that happened in your private family life.
Yeah, thank you. You're
in
welcome.
all your musical evolution, you've spoken so generously about Fela, Tony Allen, Femi Kuti.
Yep.
And obviously, we wish you the best with all your many exciting projects. Tell me, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Show me, see me. Show, see me.
Si. Sosimi.
That's the one.
Sosimi.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do the high five.
High five.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, bye everybody.
Mic check.